Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1159, written by DerthOFdata, The Cryptic Night in Iraq. My story is from my first tour in Iraq. We were stationed not far from Baghdad at the time. Our sector had some very heavy activity a couple months earlier, and as a result, there was a 2200 closing of checkpoints set at most crossroads in the area. No in, no out. This was followed at 2400 by a strict off-street curfew. On this night, we were lucky enough to have a patrol duty instead of manning one of those points. At about 2230, we pulled up to the side of the road for overwatch duty for a while, when a minivan slowly pulled up. An honest-to-God Astro van-style minivan. Iraq has vans of many makes and types. However, Iraq does not have soccer mom mobiles. Weird but not too weird. Still cautious, could be anything. Probably just a local trapped on the wrong side of the CP trying to beg through. However, next comes the driver. I move forward to try and puzzle out what he wants. The driver asks in flawless American English, "Hey, are the roads closed ahead?" I had expected broken English begging me to help him through the very close checkpoint ahead. The best I could stammer was something like, "Yeah," as eloquently as possible. His response, again in a perfect American accent, "Well dang, oh well, you have a good night now, catch you later buddy." I am paraphrasing him, but I distinctly remember him calling me buddy as he drove off. I remember because as I wondered about his car and the conversation, I saw his license plate. It was from Florida. To this day, I don't know who that stranger was, but I wonder if he wasn't just some guy who got really lost and refused to ask for directions. Case notes for file 1159, The Cryptic Night in Iraq. Wow, so Florida man strikes again, all the way over in Iraq. Impressive. How truly bizarre this is though. He had Florida tags. How does that happen? Was it a car that was actually from Florida and an actual American just there? Did they just import the tags over the license plate for some reason? Outside of importing the car from the States like on a boat? Who would do that though? What's the point? I suppose it's not impossible though, but just very odd. Maybe we're dealing with a space-time anomaly that transported him far away? Hell, from his perspective, he might not even realize that he's in Iraq. Maybe he still thinks that he's in the US, in Florida, and that there's just some military checkpoint that's going on. I mean, it was US military, so, it wasn't like he was pulling up to a checkpoint with Iraq military. If you're in Florida and you pull up to a checkpoint and it's Iraq military, you'd be like, what's going on? Are we being invaded now? From his perspective, he may not actually realize that anything too weird has happened. It would explain the checkpoint confusion and how he's driving a minivan from Florida. That's all I got though. Outside of a space-time anomaly, I don't know. It's very strange. I hope he managed to get home safely though. Case file number 1160, written by The Best Yak Ever, The Very Strange Taco Night. A few years back, I wanted to do a taco night. I have this big frying pan I use to make homemade tortillas. I get my ingredients and then go into my cupboard for the pan, but it isn't there. I called my wife asking her if she'd moved it. She didn't. Perplexed, I rummaged through my kitchen and nothing. Nothing else in the house is missing. We have a security system, cameras, and a dog who barks anytime someone is at the door, and many times when no one is at the door. Hi, Mr. Ben. No one has been in our house but us. But the pan is just gone. We actually searched the whole house. The situation is so stupidly strange. Taco night was cancelled. About 2 weeks go by. Nothing out of the ordinary occurs. I open up the cupboard to get a saucepan, and there's the freaking frying pan. It's right where it's supposed to be, in a place where the two of us checked on multiple occasions that first night. The pan blinked out of existence, and then 2 weeks go by, or at least something like 2 weeks, and then it blinked right back in. Case notes file 1160, The Very Strange Taco Night. Ah yes, the ever-alert dog, Mr. Ben, routinely barks at nothing at all during the day, waking me from my peaceful slumber. It's very frustrating, but Mr. Ben just wants to be safe. I like how you stated it so simply though, and indeed it's what I think actually happened to the pan. For a bit of time, it blinked out of existence, Rather, how I frame it, everything that isn't in the cone of a sentient player blinks out of existence until a sentient player moves back in to look at it. Then it blinks back in. Rarely, objects that are supposed to form back fail to. For a while. Usually they return, but not always. And even better, sometimes you get an extra duplicate from a neighboring multiverse universe. So that's cool. In this case, you just got your pan back. Unsettling, I think is the word, It's the only thing that's happened to me that's weird, besides, a weird episode of Stargate appearing from nowhere. Never saw it before, and then tennis balls vanish. Nothing too crazy. No alien abductions or space-time anomalies into deep space or something. Well, then I would die, so hopefully that doesn't happen. If a space-time anomaly happens, I hope it's concentrated and transports me somewhere else on Earth. Please, not inside the Earth. Case file number 1161, written by Stuisaac, The Sixth Sense. When I was 14, my dad and I were home alone as my mom and brothers went to visit my grandparents. One morning I woke up and got ready to go around to a friend's house. Dad said he wasn't feeling too great and that he was going to have a lie down. Didn't think anything of it and went to my friend's house. On the way there, I had this feeling of dread and fear that I couldn't quite pin down. So I phoned my mom and told her that Dad and I were alright, but he felt ill. Nothing unusual at all. Dad was ill quite a lot with headaches and whatnot. When I actually got to my friend's house, I was there no longer than 5 minutes when the feeling of dread got overwhelming. I felt like the world was closing in on me and that I was about to die. Fear welled up in me and it was impossible to ignore it. I left and walked home, not running, don't know why. The whole way back knowing, and not thinking, I knew as if it had already happened that I was going to find something at home that I didn't want to. I've also just realized typing this that I didn't phone my dad as I walked home. I think I wanted to stave off what I was going to discover as long as possible. I got to the corner near my house and froze. A big hedge separates my house from the path and I didn't want to go around because I knew what was on the other side. I could see it in my mind. A few minutes go past, and I eventually manage a few steps around the hedge and my heart drops. An ambulance is sitting on my drive. The fear and dread disappeared instantly, and everything just seemed to become calm. I walked past the ambulance, still don't understand why I didn't look in it first, and into the house. The living room is a mess. My dad's computer chair is on its side, and everything on the desk is scattered under the floor. I calmly walk through each room in the house, but no one's in any of them. So back out to the ambulance. I knock on the doors and the wait seems like an eternity. I didn't want them to open. Once they're opened, it's over. But they do, and there's my dad, alive, sitting up on the bed grinning with the paramedics. I can remember saying, "That's my father," and then getting into the ambulance. I was angry, confused, and relieved all at the same time. For the last half an hour, my mind had convinced me that I was going to find something life-changing at home. But here he was perfectly, at the time, all right. When I left for my friend's house, my dad had gone onto his computer and suddenly thought that he was having a heart attack. He phoned 999 and tried to describe what was happening, but he passed out, and the next thing he remembers is the paramedics scooping him off the floor and taking him into the ambulance. Turns out his aorta was slowly but surely tearing away from his heart, and he was rushed into surgery. They chucked an artificial valve in him, and 10 years later, he's fit as a fiddle. I'll never be able to explain what I felt and why I was drawn back home. I don't believe in anything supernatural or spiritual, so coincidence, I guess? A bloody weird coincidence. Case notes for file 1161, The Sixth Sense. To feel his pain. To be so connected, well, one layer of that is empathy, not just sympathy, caring for your father, but truly your mind and in this case your soul was tethered to your father in ways we currently cannot describe with the scientific method, but as real as electromagnetism or gravity or any other force, or rather in this case a manifestation of forces. It's all part of the natural world and happens to people all the time, if you're open to it, if you haven't shut off that access ramp to your subconscious, between your subconscious. I think many people have, without necessarily realizing that they did. Anyways, I'm glad your father is fit as a fiddle. I hope he remains that way for a long time. And now time for the quote of the day. Health food makes me sick. Calvin Trillin. Yes, It's difficult to find health food that is particularly delicious. For me, there is one that's just incredibly delicious, and that's avocado sushi. You make the rice in the rice cooker, mix it with rice vinegar, and then you just assemble it on a nori wrap, add some avocado between it. Then you roll it up and slice it up, and you want to mix a bit of Kiko soy sauce with sushi sauce. I can't say it. With sushi. With sushi sauce. There you go. My God. Anyways, you mix that together, and the sushi sauce is a bit sweeter, so it really blends well with the soy sauce, which is saltier. I think on their own, soy sauce is too salty and sushi sauce is too sweet. So you mix them together and it's perfect. Just dip that in. You can use a fork. You don't have to use chopsticks, but more appropriate to use chopsticks, I guess. Anyways, make it. It's so good. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.